Hello there, friend. If you've clicked on this video, something inside you is stirring. A quiet unrest, perhaps a sense of being stuck in the same old patterns. Maybe the bills keep piling up, or you're watching others move ahead while you feel anchored in place. Or perhaps you're just seeking a straightforward voice in a world full of noise. I'm no flashy guru with rented luxury in the background. I'm someone who's walked a long road, born in a crowded apartment, scraped by in dorms, juggled jobs to make ends meet. I've had moments of plenty, stretches of nothing, and learned the hard way through trial and error. Today, I'm sharing insights I wish I'd grasped earlier in life, back when no one was around to say, "Hold on, you're heading off course." Listen closely. Being short on cash isn't about where you started, what degrees you lack, or some grand conspiracy. It's often the result of repeated choices that dig you deeper without you noticing. You might blame luck, the economy, or timing, but in truth, you're shaping your own path with habits that hold you back. In my family, we had a saying: watch how someone handles scarcity, and you'll see their future unfold. Scarcity isn't just an empty wallet. It's a mindset, a way of approaching each day. The encouraging part? Mindsets can shift no matter your age. I know a fellow who, at 68, started a small repair shop after decades in a factory job. Meanwhile, folks half his age claim it's too late. Nonsense. In this talk, I'll walk you through 4 key missteps that keep so many from building stability. These are patterns I've seen in colleagues, in my own kin, and yes, in the mirror. I'll suggest ways to turn them around, not with quick fixes or empty promises, but with practical steps rooted in experience. The hardest part? Recognizing these in yourself. Most don't. They splurge on gadgets they can't afford, dine out on borrowed funds, prioritize fun over growth, then wonder why life feels unfair. But life responds to your choices. If you're ready for some honest reflection, stick with me. It might sting a bit, like a frank chat from an elder who cares. By the end, you won't have instant wealth, but you'll have a clearer direction. And that's the foundation for real change. Settle in, maybe grab a notebook. This is a conversation from someone who's been there. Let's start with the first common trap: spending beyond what's truly available. Admit it. Have you ever watched your paycheck vanish before you've even planned for the month? It's easy to live in anticipation, pulling from future earnings, or worse, from loans that chain you down. I recall a buddy from my early working days back in the 90s. He was a mechanic, steady income, nothing extravagant. One day, he shows up beaming about a fancy watch he'd financed over 2 years. "Why not treat myself?" he said. I asked if it helped him earn more or just look sharp. He shrugged it off. Fast forward, job cuts hit, payments loomed, and that watch became a reminder of regret. He ended up selling it at a loss, calling it his time thief. When you borrow for items that don't generate value, like the latest phone on installments or a vacation charged to credit, you're not acquiring assets. You're extending your constraints. It feels good in the moment, but the interest and stress compound, leaving you further behind. People do this chasing immediate gratification, ignoring how it erodes freedom over time. The outcome? A cycle of debt that saps energy and options. Here's the principle. Build the habit of living within your current means, saving for wants rather than borrowing. Before any purchase, pause and ask, does this expand my opportunities or just fill a fleeting urge? Mastering delay turns impulse into intention, freeing you to invest in what truly matters. Now, moving to the second oversight, skimping on what sharpens your mind and skills. You see it all the time. People hunting for the cheapest way out when it comes to learning something new. They'll scroll through free clips, skim articles, or convince themselves they already know enough. But here's what I've learned over the years. Free often comes with hidden costs that add up quietly until you're stuck in the same spot 5, 10 years later. In my younger days, I was tight with every dollar. A course or a decent book felt like a luxury I couldn't justify. I figured I'd pick things up as I went, learn from experience. Experience did teach me, but it was slow and painful. I watched others who invested a small portion of their earnings into understanding business, sales, or a trade pull ahead steadily. One day, I finally set aside money I could barely spare and spent a weekend with an older tradesman who'd built a quiet, comfortable life fixing and restoring old furniture. He didn't lecture. He just showed me how he thought about value, pricing, and customers. Those few hours shifted more in my head than years of trial and error. The reason so many skip this step is simple. Growth feels abstract when money is tight. You can see the new shoes or the night out, but you can't immediately touch the return on better knowledge. So the mind chooses the tangible reward now over the larger one later. The result? Skills stay shallow, opportunities pass by, and the gap between where you are and where you could be keeps widening. The timeless principle here is straightforward. Treat your mind like your most valuable tool. If you don't maintain and upgrade it, it dulls. Set aside something, however small, regularly for books, conversations with people who know more, or structured learning. Even replacing one evening of mindless browsing with focused reading starts compounding in ways you'll feel within months. Your thinking sharpens, ideas connect differently, and doors you didn't even see before begin to appear. Now, let's talk about the third pattern that quietly keeps people pinned down, carrying the weight of a victim's outlook. It's easy to look around and find reasons why things aren't working, policies you don't control, breaks others got that you didn't, setbacks that feel unfair. And some of those reasons are real. Life isn't always even. But when blame becomes the main lens, it hands your power over to everything outside you. You wait for conditions to improve, for someone to fix it, instead of asking what you can still shape. I watched this up close with a relative who came through hard times, war, displacement, starting over in a new place with almost nothing. He could have spent decades resentful, and no one would have blamed him. Instead, every evening, he'd sit with a simple ledger, tracking what came in and what went out, planning the next small move. He'd say, "The world can take a lot from you, but it can't take your decisions unless you let it." He built a modest workshop, taught himself new repairs as needs changed, and provided steadily for his family. He never spoke about injustice much. He just kept choosing what was in his hands. People fall into this mindset because it protects the ego in the short run. No need to face personal shortcomings if the deck was stacked, but over time, it erodes agency. Opportunities that require initiative get ignored because it won't work for someone like me. The longer it lasts, the more it feels like truth. The lesson I carry from watching him and others is this: own what you can influence, no matter how small the circle seems at first. Write down where you are, trace back the choices that led here without self-pity, then list one or two things you can decide differently starting tomorrow. Shift your circle of friends if they spend more time complaining than building. Cut habits that waste hours. Responsibility isn't punishment. It's the only real freedom available. Part 3. And that brings us to the fourth hurdle many face. Clinging to what's familiar, even when it's not serving you, out of fear of stepping into the unknown. Starting fresh can feel daunting. Admitting that a path you've poured years into isn't leading where you hoped. Maybe it's a job that's secure but draining, a venture that's limping along, or habits built over time that no longer fit. The pull to stay is strong because change means uncertainty, potential loss, and the effort of rebuilding. From my own chapters, I've faced this more times than I'd like. There was a stretch where I ran a small supply business that started strong but hit rough waters with market shifts. I held on for too long, pouring in more resources, convinced a turnaround was just around the corner. Finally, I had to close it down, owing favors and facing empty shelves. It stung, but that ending opened space for something new, a consulting role where I shared what I'd learned about logistics. Later, personal upheavals like a health scare forced another reset, starting with basic recovery and relearning routines. Each time, the thought was, this is it, no way back. Yet, sitting down to list what skills I still had, who might need them, and one small action for the day turned zero into a foundation. Why do we avoid this? Sunk costs whisper that quitting means waste, and ego resists the humility of beginning again. But holding on often leads to slow erosion, missed chances, mounting frustration, a life on autopilot. Successful folks I've known didn't succeed once. They pivoted multiple times, treating each start as a refinement. The enduring wisdom views zero, not as defeat, but as a clean slate for wiser choices. Let go of what's anchoring you. Make a quiet inventory. What do you do well? Where can that add value right now? What's one step you can take without waiting for perfection? Action, even modest, builds momentum and reveals paths you couldn't see while stuck. To wrap this up gently, these 4 patterns: overspending on illusions of future wealth, underinvesting in your growth, seeing yourself as powerless and fearing fresh starts, are what quietly sustain cycles of struggle for so many. They're not permanent flaws. They're habits shaped by circumstance and choice, and habits can evolve with intention and persistence. If you've stayed with me this far, that's a sign you're not content to drift. You're open to examining your own road, and that's where real shifts begin. Let's reflect without rush. First, recognize that funds are a tool for security, not a scorecard for worth. Mishandle them by living ahead of yourself, and they slip away. Second, your intellect is your greatest asset. Neglect its upkeep, and everything else suffers. Third, reclaiming your role in the story turns obstacles into navigable terrain. Fourth, every ending carries the seed of a better beginning if you're willing to plant it. At the core, financial strain often stems from deeper patterns of thought, postponing real living for some vague someday that never arrives. I've seen it in sharp relief. Win a windfall without changing the underlying approach, and it's gone in a flash, back to square one. Here's the unvarnished truth I hold on to, passed down like a quiet legacy. When times are tough, you're at a crossroads. Sink further or climb. That choice is yours alone. No rescue arrives unbidden. No external force will carry you. But you have the capacity within, as countless others have shown, rising from bare beginnings without advantages, armed only with a willingness to adapt, learn, and persist. If you're feeling that pull to change, start with these grounded actions you can take right away. No fanfare, just steps that have worked for me and those I've seen turn things around. Begin by reviewing your outflows honestly. Pull together a simple record. Use an app on your phone, a spreadsheet, or even a notepad. Track every expense for a week or two. No judgments at first. You'll spot the leaks. Those small indulgences that add up, like extra coffees or subscriptions you barely use. Once you see it laid out, trim what's not essential. It's like pruning a tree. It might feel bare at first, but it allows stronger growth where it counts. Next, seek out one solid resource to build your understanding of handling resources better. Skip the hype-filled stuff. Go for something timeless, like accounts from those who've built from scratch or basic guides on value creation. Read biographies not for inspiration alone, but to extract practical moves they made in tough spots. Even 20 minutes a day replaces idle scrolling with something that sticks. Then clear out the noise that drags you down. Identify one habit or influence, maybe a social feed full of complaints or a routine that wastes time, and replace it. Surround yourself with inputs that encourage steady progress, like stories of quiet resilience. What you absorb shapes what you become. Finally, sketch a clear picture of where you'd like to be in a few years. Not vague wishes, but specifics. What daily life looks like, what skills you're using, how you're contributing. This isn't daydreaming, it's your compass. From there, pick one small move toward it today. No need for a grand leap. Why invest in this path? I've crossed paths with all sorts. Young starters, midlife shifters, late bloomers. What sets apart those who break free isn't luck or genius. It's a steady commitment to refining how they think and act. I'm not here as some expert on a pedestal, just a fellow traveler who stumbled often and kept going. If these reflections resonate, consider sticking around for more. In coming sessions, we'll explore choosing work that aligns with real demand, navigating fears around shifts in direction, building habits for long-term steadiness, and resources that truly reshape perspectives. The wise path isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's recognizing that now is as good as any. You've got the starting line right here. If you're inclined, join in. We'll walk it step by step. Let me share a story that stayed with me for years, one that ties these ideas together in a way no list ever could. Years ago, I knew a man named Samuel, quiet, unassuming, worked as a janitor in an office building long after most would have retired. He'd come in early, mop floors, empty trash, nod politely to the executives rushing by. No one paid him much mind. But one evening, as I was locking up late, I found him in the break room with a worn notebook, sketching layouts for small apartments. Turns out, in his spare time, he'd been buying run-down properties in overlooked neighborhoods, fixing them slowly with his own hands, renting them out. He never borrowed big. He'd save, buy one, improve it, let the rent cover the next. By the time he passed, he'd built a portfolio that supported his kids and grandkids comfortably. No fanfare, no complaints about the system, no waiting for a better hand. What struck me wasn't the money. He lived simply till the end. It was how he approached every day. He didn't spend ahead of himself. He bought tools and materials only after setting cash aside. He never stopped learning, reading old books on construction, talking to suppliers, picking up tricks from anyone willing to share. He didn't blame the long hours or low wages for keeping him stuck. He used the steady paycheck as a base while building something parallel. And when a property didn't work out or needed major repairs, he didn't cling. He sold, learned, moved to the next. Samuel wasn't chasing wealth for its own sake. He wanted breathing room, choices for his family, the quiet dignity of not depending on anyone's mercy. He understood something profound. True security comes from aligning daily actions with long-term direction, even when the steps feel small. I've thought about him often when facing my own setbacks. When everything collapsed once and I had to start over in a new city with little more than determination, I asked myself, what would Samuel do today? The answer was always the same. One deliberate move forward, no excuses. You don't need dramatic circumstances to apply this. Wherever you stand right now, there's a version of that notebook waiting. Your own quiet plan. It might be learning a skill that pays better, starting a side project that solves a real need, or simply building the discipline to set aside a portion of every dollar earned before spending. The common thread is choosing progress over comfort in the small moments. And here's what experience has shown me without fail. The gap between struggling and steady isn't usually a lack of opportunity. It's a delay in changing the inner habits that shape how you see and use what's already in front of you. Looking back, the real difference isn't in the starting point. Plenty start with less and end up steady. It's in refusing to let yesterday's habits dictate tomorrow. Samuel never talked much about his approach. He just lived it. And in quiet moments, when doubt crept in for me, remembering his steady rhythm pulled me through. You carry the same potential, not because you're destined or special in some flashy way, but because the tools are simple and always available. Honest reflection, small consistent actions, and the willingness to adjust course when needed. No one else can hand you that. It's forged in the choices you make when no one's watching. If something here has landed with you, don't wait for a surge of motivation. It fades quickly. Start with whatever feels manageable today. Track your spending for a week. Read one chapter of a solid book. Write down one thing you can change. These aren't grand gestures. They're the building blocks that over time reshape everything. I've shared this not to preach from a distance, but because I've lived the alternative. The slow drain of repeating the same patterns, hoping for different results. And I've lived the shift. The quiet satisfaction of seeing choices compound into stability, options, and peace of mind. You're not defined by what's in your account right now. You're defined by the direction you choose next. And if you decide to move toward clearer thinking, disciplined habits, and steady progress, you'll find the path widens as you walk it. I'll keep sharing these reflections. Straightforward lessons from a long road, no polish or promises of overnight miracles. If they help you think a little differently, stay with me. We'll cover practical ways to spot real opportunities, build skills that last, handle setbacks without losing ground, and separate useful advice from noise. For now, just remember this. You're not broke beyond repair. You're at the beginning of whatever you decide comes next. Take that first deliberate step today and keep going. I'm rooting for you.